Good morning. My name is Brian Heck. I'm the city manager for the city of Springfield. Today we're here to discuss the shooting incident turned tragic accident that occurred Sunday night into Monday morning in Springfield. First, our thoughts and prayers go out to the family and friends of Eric Cole, who lost his life. Today, we will hear comments from Police Chief Lee Graff, Mayor Warren Copeland, Community Police Advisory Team Chair James Bacon, and NAACP President Denise Williams. After comments are made, we will take questions from the media. And in order and effort to control that, we'll kind of start to the right and work our way across the left. That way we're not screaming or yelling questions over each other. That way there's some order to the questions that are coming. That way we can get answers to the questions that are asked. So again, it's unfortunate that we're here before you again. It was 2 weeks ago today that we were here doing a press conference related to gun violence in our community. With that, I will turn it over to Police Chief Lee Graff.
Thanks, Brian. Good morning. I want to start, first of all, by expressing my condolences to Eric's family and also my profound regret at Eric's passing. This is never, as many of these as I've done, every one of these incidents involves family and loved ones and friends, and we should always approach these things with that in mind. What I want to do is kind of give you a chronology of events so that we have a clearer idea of what occurred on the night of the 13th, which would be Sunday night. Anything that I mention is in no way, and I want to make this clear, is in no way to besmirch anyone, and certainly not Eric. But this is, but we also have to kind of be clear to kind of understand a little bit what happened Sunday night. I'm going to kind of start a little earlier. We actually had tone drops, and what that means is a tone that goes out across the air for an emergency response, that lives are in jeopardy or lives are in danger, and that implies that officers are to respond in an emergency mode, which is what you think of as lights and siren. Prior to that, we had some reports in the 400 block of West Liberty Avenue of an incident where guns were displayed and then later where shots were fired. This was approximately at 11:16 is when we started to receive those calls p.m. on the 13th. As part of those calls and part of those dispatch tapes, although this is not confirmed, remember this is citizens calling this in. All that has to be investigated. It was alleged that Eric was out there along with other people and there was some type of disturbance or quarrel, and it was alleged that there were guns being displayed. And then a few minutes later there was an allegation that shots had been fired. A few minutes later at 23:22, which is 11:22 p.m., we received calls that there was a person that had been shot in the 1400 block of South Center Boulevard. Officers, there was some confusion in some of the dispatching as to where exactly the address was. They originally were talking about the 1000 block of South Center Street. If you look in the videos that have been released, You can see the officers slowed down around the area of Johnny Lytle and Center, which is there by a building, restaurant Little Joe's, the restaurant Mini Mart. And they clarified that the person is actually in the 1400 block of South Center Boulevard. The police vehicles continue. From what we are initially piecing together, remember this is all under investigation, the lead officer was trying to catch the addresses on the house. Eric was lying in the street, as you can see from the videos, and the officer did not see him and struck him with their vehicle. As you can see from the videos, immediately stopped. The officers ran out to render aid to Eric. They were there on the scene. The squad got there. Eric was transported to our regional hospital and care flighted to Miami Valley. He was pronounced deceased after midnight. We believe in follow-up investigations in the 400 block of West Liberty, we have evidence that there was some type of exchange of gunfire. We believe that may be where Eric received a gunshot wound. He had a gunshot wound to his left arm. He had in fact called and had said he had been shot. He was obviously very scared, saying he thought he was dying. From witnesses, he had pulled in shortly before officers arrived on scene there in the backyard of, I believe it was 1363. It was in the 1300 block of South Center Boulevard, gotten out of a vehicle, left some items there, talked to a couple of people, and then ran between the houses. And I think that's from that point to where he was lying in the roadway. What has happened as a result of this, of course, we have two different things going on here. We have an investigation on what happened. How was he shot? Whether it occurred on West Liberty or somewhere else. So that investigation continues to see what had happened there. And then, of course, we had the investigation of him being struck by our police vehicle. I was called pretty quickly after this had occurred, the accident. Immediately asked that we call in an outside agency to investigate the accident, in this case the Ohio State Highway Patrol, which they did. And I would like to thank them for coming there that night and for their assistance. Their investigation's ongoing into the accident. We began to piece all this together, both the scene there on South Center and then later over on Liberty, trying to see exactly what we have. In the morning, first of all, the officer that was involved was placed on administrative leave, and she remains there at this time. An internal affairs investigation was opened up Monday morning, or Monday by my hand, for our professional standards unit to do that. This is normal in a case like this, and so we will have an internal look at events. We are waiting to see what the Highway Patrol comes up with. We are also waiting, as I'm sure the family is, for the coroner's official report in Montgomery County. I can't give you an exact timeline on that report. As you know, the coroner is very thorough, and they will want to wait for toxicology reports and all those things to come back before they, pronounce an official report. I realize those videos are extremely impactful. They're impactful to me as well. I will say this was, let's talk about the part with the police vehicle striking Eric. This was an accident. That doesn't mean it's okay. It was an accident. This was not an intentional act on the part of the officer. I'm sure of that. I would remind everyone that a camera helps us immensely, whether it be in-car cameras, body cameras, which we are hoping to look at getting into by the end of this summer. But that camera focuses where it's pointed. It is not an indicator of what the officer is seeing. It's not an indicator of where they're looking. So when you see that camera that's mounted on basically the back of what would be in your vehicle or your rear view mirror, it points straight ahead and it doesn't move. Human beings inside vehicles move quite a bit, whether looking side to side, looking down, looking over. I just want to make that clear. That is not through the eyes of an officer. It's very easy in times of stress and under this tragedy to sometimes forget that. We'll investigate this, but I just want to make it clear that there's nothing that would indicate that this was an intentional act on the part of the officer. I've talked very briefly with the family coming in here. Our investigators, of course, will talk to them more at length. We will certainly be transparent as we go through this process. And they are welcome to ask questions as we go through this process at any time, because this is their family member. This is their concern as much as it is this department's, as much as it is our community. What I would ask for, because we know we are living in trying times, is for patience, to allow us to work through this process, and vigilance. I have no issue with that whatsoever. I've always tried to be as transparent as possible. I've charged all the officers under my command to do likewise. So I just, what I want is a community during this tragedy is to work together to make sure that everything that needs to be done is being done, and that we come up with a resolution to these issues that's acceptable, both within legal boundaries, civil boundaries, and within our community standards here in Springfield.